Hey, I'm Alex.
And I'm Luisa, and we're Healthy Schools volunteers in Guatemala. So welcome to a food demonstration we're going to be doing today, talking about a few tips on what to consider when preparing for a food demonstration. Before we get started though, we want to just talk about two general objectives for why to do a food demonstration. The first of which is the nutritional content, promoting the consumption of fruits and vegetables in the everyday diet.
Also to promote hygienic practices in the kitchen. This is going to help with digestion and absorption of nutrients, as well as decrease the incidences of oral and fecal contamination of those foods.
Before we go on, we want to just consider a few other points. Before starting a food demonstration with a recipe, you want to consider that that recipe is culturally appropriate and that the participants are familiar with at least a few of the ingredients, if not all of them. You don't want to introduce ingredients that you're bringing from outside of the community that the participants won't have access to or won't be at a reasonable cost. So you want to have a recipe that they're familiar with already, but just introduce fruits and vegetables to it to increase the nutritional content. Another thing to consider is who your audience is. Are you working with a group of teens or students or a group of mothers? And you want to consider this based on the recipe. Which recipe do you want to do and what points to emphasize with that recipe? Finally, you want to focus on a recipe that's simple, a few steps and a few ingredients, something that's easy to replicate at home, because that's ultimately the goal, that they'll take this recipe away with them and replicate it in their own homes.
Food demos are a great way to give nutritional information. You want to keep the messages really simple because you don't want to overwhelm the participants with a lot of information that they won't be able to retain. Also keep in mind that most of the time the food demonstrations will be translated into most likely a Mayan language. So you want to keep the information simple so the translation can happen. For instance, we're doing pancakes with the addition of bananas and carrots. So you would want to say, carrots are high in vitamin A, which are good for your eyes. That's all you have to say. Bananas are high in potassium and are a great form of natural sugar. So, let's get started. I'm ready.
Beam! Before we get started, let's notice a few things. Alex has her hair down instead of pulled back as she should for a proper food demonstration. Her hair can be a source of contamination and can also get in her face, which will cause her to use her hands to push it back, another source of contamination. Her necklace can also dangle into the food as well as her necklace. And let's notice another thing. She is not wearing an apron, which can mean that her clothes can get dirty, but also her clothes can be a source of contamination to the staging area where the food prep is happening. Finally, we haven't noticed that Alex has washed her hands, and that's very important to point out with participants before a food demonstration in the effort of promoting hygienic practices in the kitchen. One additional thing, when working with fruits and vegetables, we also need to include as part of the demonstration the washing and sanitizing of these fruits and vegetables properly. Now, let's make sure Alex amends these things before we continue. Shazam! So now that we've done all the proper preparation, Alex is going to start mixing the ingredients and getting everything together. Another thing that's important to point out with food demonstrations is it's good to be informative and also entertaining with the food demonstration. Keeping that in mind, you want to have no more than 10 to 12 participants. You want the audience to be able to see everything you're doing in the kitchen, as well as listing the ingredients and showing them those ingredients as you're using them. Shazam!